Anika's mother is probably clapping on the other side there. Colette Ruddock, Dr. Jewel Amoa, and Nahil Wishlik. So I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping tonight. So for those who are attending as participants, please put your questions in the Q&A, and you're welcome to use the chat. The participants, so you know, you can see us, but we can't see you. So please feel free to communicate through the chat. Tonight, it's about safe spaces and respectful discussions as usual. So we'd like to honor the land and territory that we're on. So Halton, as we know it today, is rich in the history and modern traditions many First Nations and the Métis, Anishinaabe, to the Arawandran, to the Haudenosaunee and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we are in solidarity with our Indigenous brothers and sisters to honor and respect the four directions: lands, waters, plants, and animals, and ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for being stewards of this traditional territory. So at this time, I would like to invite Evangeline Cheemer, a founder of Black Mentorship Inc., to step up to the podium, but a brief intro. So I'm going to tell you, if you were here early, you would have heard lots of discussions, but we can sleep now because this is our last event until Evangeline finds something else for us to do. And Anton was talking about running early in the morning and so on and so forth. Anyways, so Evangeline, when Evangeline approached me in mid-December and said, I have this idea for Black History Month, but it's too big. I'm not sure if we can do this. And I weighed in with, oh yeah, we can do this. We can do this. And then about 3 weeks in, I said, we can't do this. And she said, yes, yes, we can. So we reached out to friends, family members, colleagues, asking them to volunteer their time and step up to the podium with us and speak. And I thank you all, for those of you who are here tonight and for those of you who have been with us before, for joining Evangeline and myself on this journey. So Evangeline is the founder of Black Mentorship Inc., an organization dedicated to fostering the professional growth and personal expansion of Black professionals. So BMI was born out of Evangeline's personal experiences with systemic racism and biases as a Black professional woman in Canada. Despite having a master's degree in information technology services and diplomas in several areas, Evangeline was passed over for promotions and wasn't invited to have a seat at the table, despite all those her experience. So out of this situation and her experience, and with the recognition that Black professionals and entrepreneurs were also experiencing the same career challenges, BMI was created to inspire, support, and mentor Black professionals to fulfill their potential, to build community, and to promote change. As part of her work, Evangeline helps organizations create exceptional atmospheres where everyone thrives. Evangeline has been named one of the Black women to watch, and she's nominated for Women of Inspiration Award. Her dream is to see every Black professional shine and reach their potential. On a personal note, she's also a devoted wife and mother of 4 boys who cook breakfast for her every morning, as we have noted. Over to you, Evangeline.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. I want to take this opportunity before saying anything, and thank you everybody for joining us to thank you, Ingrid. Yeah, I can't thank you enough. I don't really have a word to describe what this experience has been. When I reached out to you, like you said, let's go. And there hasn't been a day, time of the night, weekend, that I reached out to you that you didn't answer, respond, even in the midnight. And so really, thank you. That's been amazing, this journey with you. And Jeff, whew, you've made this session so seamless, so I cannot thank you enough. You've been amazing, part of our team. Thank you. Thank you. Ryan Knight, I thank you for volunteering. I thank you for being part of this team as well. Good evening, everyone. It's really been a ride. And yesterday, when I sat down to reflect on this month's Black History Month and what it means to me, I struggled to come up with the words to describe this experience, specifically our Propel Black Success team. The year 2020 was a challenging year, a year we lost so many people to the pandemic, a year that Black Lives Matter ignited an ongoing call for justice worldwide. And we saw those in power taking notice. We saw the spark of so many movements, discussions, anger, bitterness, and hope. And while we may look at the events of 2020 and be tempted to focus solely on issues surrounding the Black race, issue that has surrounded us for generations, why I am tempted to continue to speak about systemic racism and how it is built to exclude certain races, or just dwell and talk about the system and how we know it's not broken, as many have suggested, but was never built to make room for Blacks and minorities. I could continue to list all the problems that last year brought to the forefront, experiences that caused us to lose hope and trust and feel alone. The truth is, the year 2020 also motivated people of all ages, races, ethnicity, to want to do things differently. Today, the Black community and other minorities can openly and freely discuss our pain and challenges and know someone is listening. Last year's events allowed us to find our voice on a larger scale. It allowed us to attempt to demand fairness for everyone and create frameworks that can sustain ways for us to begin to solve the issues caused by generations past. It opened doors for us to create a new tomorrow for all of us and for the next generation. We must love each other, respect each other, and value each other's uniqueness. We can no longer hide under the excuse that we do not know. All of us can contribute to the societal transformation we need to propel each other forward. We must ask ourselves, in what ways do our actions support the transformation we advocate? It is no longer enough to list the wrongs that have been handled to Blacks and minorities. It is not enough to acknowledge the inequalities that exist in our schools, businesses, and workforce. It is certainly not enough to proclaim support without backing that support with tangible actions and actively seeking ways to remove those obstacles that block people of color achievements, that hinder us from reaching the sky. All of us can do more. We hope that our Black History Month, Propel Black Success Celebrations, has ignited in you a positive vision of the many ways that we can collectively elevate our success stories to achieve a better future for us and the generation after us. I'll leave you with my favorite quote of Maya Angelou. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. I thank you, everybody. I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of Black Mentorship, Inc., thank you. If you are, like Ingrid said, joining us for the first time or join all of our sections, we honor you and thank you. Okay, we're gonna jump right into our celebration today. And we are going to begin by introducing African Masquerade, My Roots. Let me introduce them a little bit, and share with you their mission. Their mission is to preserve Black cultural heritage, promote social interaction, render assistance, and provide education to families in the Black community in Canada through social cultural interactive programs. They also provide aid, support, assistance to family in visibly disadvantaged and at-risk neighborhoods. And they've worked with other education or other agencies in rural communities in Africa, especially Nigeria, through education, housing, and healthcare services. They've also attended Raptors reception at Nathan Phillips Square. And I know them personally. So this is a lovely, lovely couple that, they're dear to me. They're part of my community. And I'm so proud to share what they do, their work with all of you. Okay. My Root Foundation.
Uba Omenan Uba Omenan Omenan Aineme Omenan Aineme Egu Bamod Ane baby she baby shato ya ihe de bon na me Egu Bamod di ma Uba Omenan Omenan Igado ba mechi di ma Oba Igede Aneba inobu igado ba Kana kansha di ma Oba Aneba inobu agogo
Papa, we're not doing trouble you, Biam. Okay, I'm on here, Papa. It's your dinner, dear Lucha.
Because I'm a better Igwe.
Okay,
I'm a better Egananga to Gananga Gurumu, Shiboru Magurike, some a better Igwe, Ochilos Odike, Eganano, Egananga to Gananga Gurumu, Digana Habariz Igwe. Chimu, Chimaloke Namanu. Chimaloke Namanu, Enugu Siteti, Governor Enugu Siteti, Nganga Yinabo no Bobudike, Chimaloke Namanu, Obiba Nebogwana, Chimo Maga, no. What about Banama? Well, you know, Banama, Banama, well, you know, Banama, Banama, well, you know, Banama, Banama. Banama,
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, My Roots Foundation. Thank you so much. Jeff, can you take over from them? They're still sharing their screen. Just giving them a few minutes.
Yeah, they need to make, Erica, you need to make Jeff the host.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I think we're back on. Okay, welcome back. That was really awesome. Thank you so much, My Roots Foundation. And without wasting much time, we will go into our discussion of the evening. And at this time, I will start by introducing our wonderful esteemed panelists. I will start with Dr. Joel Amo. Dr. Joel Amo is a Canadian, Trinidadian human rights lawyer, activist, and academic. She's committed to research, advocacy, and activism to inspire and produce systemic change, enhance access to justice, and the full enjoyment of rights. Joel's doctoral dissertation examined the impact of intersecting identities on the attainment of substantive equality. She developed an analytical tool, GRACE, to demonstrate how the intersection of gender, race, age, and culture impact access to equality rights for girls subject to customary law in South Africa. Dr. Joel has worked with United Nations and so many other areas. She is a graduate of McMaster University, the University of Ottawa, and the University of Cape Town. Currently, she is the Human Rights and Equity Advisor for the Halton District School Board and serves as a part-time commissioner with the Ontario Human Rights Commission. Joel will happily trade 1,000 snowflakes for 1,000 grains of sand on any given day. Anton Skerrit. Anton, how do you pronounce your last name?
Skerrit.
Skerrit, okay. Anton Skerrit. Anton is a former international athlete who is currently the principal at Birchmont Park College Institute in Scarborough. Anton has 30 years of experience in education, athletics, and entrepreneur. Anton was born in Trinidad and Tobago, grew up in Toronto, and was educated in Canada, the United States, and Trinidad. He graduated with a Bachelor of Business Administration in 1986, and in 2014 was inducted into the Howard University Sports Hall of Fame. Woohoo! Anton is, I know, eh? Anton is a two-time Olympian, representing Trinidad and Tobago in Los Angeles and Canada, in Seoul, South Korea, 1988. Anton is a former national champion and Canadian record holder in track, winning medals for Canada. Anton has also played semi-professional soccer in the Canadian Professional Soccer League. He loves mentorship. Obviously, that's why he's here.
That's right.
Colette Roddick. Colette has been a superintendent of education with the Halton District School Board for the past 3 years with a portfolio of student health. Colette supported the organization through the pandemic, the system closure, and the reopening of schools. In addition to student health, Colette supervised 22 elementary and secondary schools in Oakville. Now, in Colette's new portfolio, she is leading special education services in the board. Prior to her current role, Colette was an elementary school principal and teacher and working in schools in North and East areas of the board. She has a master's degree, Masters of Education in Equity Issues. Onika Green. Onika has a master's degree in Applied Sports Psychology and is a professional member of the Canadian Sports Psychology Association. Onika is the owner of the Hidden 100, a mental performance consultancy that helps athletes perform more consistently at their personal best. Specifically, the Hidden 100 facilitates training and development of mental skills such as resilience, confidence, and mindfulness. In addition to her private practice, Onika works with the national teams as the Canadian Soccer Association, Canada Basketball, and Gymnastics. She's a professor of sports psychology at Humber College and does contract work as well. Onika's familiarity with competitive environment has inspired her to make a difference in the world, in the sports world. Nihil Wiki. Nihil holds a Master's of Counseling Psychology from City University of Seattle and a Bachelor of Science degree in Psychology from Bowman University, formerly Canadian University College. Mr. Wicklick is designated as a Canadian Certified Counselor and a professional member of Canadian Counseling and Psychotherapy Association. He holds various certifications and has extensive experience working with refugee families and children both in Africa and in Canada, addressing symptoms associated with trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, etc. Okay, did I miss anyone? Let us begin. Hi, Chair. We will do your introduction just before you do your closing. And Ingrid has the honor to do that. So let's begin. And we are going to start by asking a few questions. I'm looking for my questions. No, you guys are not going scot-free. So don't think, ooh, she can't find a question. So now we can just smile away. Not that easy. So Dr. Jewel, I am going to start with you. Thank you for joining us this evening. As a Black professional, someone who has perhaps experienced systemic racism, how do you stay motivated even when you believe there is racial injustice in schools, workplace, and business?
Thanks, Evangeline. Wow, that's a loaded question. But first, I want to thank you for including me in this event. And I've been attending the others, so I'm very impressed with the work that BMI is doing. So thank you and congratulations. And also I'm delighted to be amongst my other esteemed panelists. So to your question, how do I stay motivated? And I think what I do really isn't different than what other people do. I mean, how do we get up each day? It is one day at a time, one step at a time. The whole cycle of life is, I think, about, the need to continue on. And certainly we do encounter barriers, we do encounter challenges, but we also have the ability to rise above those and move through those. I heard a quote from a woman, Lorianne Thomas, who's actually a judge on the Ontario Superior Court. And she said, no one has ever shattered a glass ceiling without getting cut. So we recognize that there are barriers and we recognize we need to move through them, but we also recognize that, that we may take on some scrapes and bruises along the way, right? We talk about individuality and, traversing new paths or being the first amongst a group to do something or to be somewhere or to acquire an honor.
But we also recognize that in traveling those unworn paths, you know, if you think about literally walking through a bush, you are going to get scraped by the tall grasses. You are going to get scraped by some branches, and that is part of the ordeal. But, you know, I think what keeps me anyway motivated and going forward is that there are so many people before me who have gone forward so that I could stand on those shoulders, so that I could be part of that community. And I think we have an obligation, we owe an obligation, not only to ourselves, but to everybody else, to our communities, whether they be immediate or broader communities, to continue on, right? And I think in the context of mentoring, that is also what that is about, is encouraging people to continue on, recognizing that, you know, we may be held back at times, we may encounter difficulties, but we also still need to move forward, to continue on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, oftentimes people tend to, people are not able to differentiate between self-esteem and self-confidence. And when they're thinking about how do I stay motivated, sometimes people think, oh, maybe this has anything to do with my skills, my confidence skills. How can one cultivate these skills that you mentioned? And I know you spoke in relation to yourself, but somebody listening to you, you know, what do you recommend? How can they cultivate confidence skills or self-esteem?
Thanks, Evangeline. I think the cultivation is still very much a factor of community, right? Is finding your people and finding the people who you draw energy from and contribute energy to. In your earlier remarks, I mean, you spoke about systemic racism, systemic injustice, and that is certainly something that all of us have come to recognize, even though we might experience it to different degrees, depending on who we are and in what context we're in. We certainly recognize that there are systemic barriers and injustices across, you know, across institutions, across systems, across the world. You also spoke about 2020 and, you know, the Black Lives Matter being a, you know, and the whole movement in 2020 being a year of reckoning. Certainly it was a year of reckoning, and I think that reckoning continues on, but it's also a moment of reclamation where we reclaim the strength in our own identities, where we claim a sense of esteem, of pride, of where we come from and where we're going and who we belong to, right? And again, it's that notion of community, recognizing that none of us goes through this alone, although many of us may at times be alone, being the only person in the room with a particular identity or intersecting identities. There are many rooms that I'm in and I'm the only racialized woman, right? So I am alone in those spaces, but I still try and find my community. And sometimes you find community and allyship with others in the room, and sometimes you find community outside of the room, right? But it really is about how we draw strength internally and how we connect.
Absolutely, well said. I will hand over to my co-host, Ingrid. Thank you.
So Nahil, this question is for you. So a growth mindset is an ongoing process, and it's not always an easy task, especially when there are barriers in the way. So, and the barriers built into the system that limits your growth. How would you suggest one would go about modeling a growth mindset?
Well, thank you very much, Ingrid. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for me to be here and to share my my experience based on growth mindset. Personally, I came from a country where things fell apart, and I had been on the run from that moment before coming to Canada. And my life was surrounded by a lot of, you know, challenges where I had gone through difficulties together with my families as well as my community members. And it isn't over yet. You can see South Sudan going through a lot of turmoil at the moment, despite, you know, going through the first turmoil that the South Sudanese had experienced when they were in the whole Sudan. This is the person that is talking to you is starting to live in refugee camp at age 5 and has been in refugee camp till I completed my high school and then moved in 2001 to Canada. knowing that things were going the way they were did not limit how I think about a life that I would want to see happen, because I believe in existence. If you are a human being and you exist, or you are still alive, there is a purpose in that manner. And that purpose is something that you cannot just sit waiting for it. It is something that you can explore further so that you work toward achieving that goal. I know what that life was all about, but I did not want to be stuck in that life experience. I want to thrive, to overcome those challenges, and to grow as a normal human being with a goal set that can determine my future. Thank you.
You're mute, Ingrid.
Thank you. So excellent, setting that purpose and moving it forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, Anton. When we think about positive mindset, we think about just moving forward and believing it will get better. But then what we are hearing from many Black leaders that have recently been given a seat at the table is they don't have the authority or bandwidth to drive the change that is required. What tips or recommendations can you offer the Black professional who may have lost hope, who have been given these great opportunities? How do they stay positive?
Great question. I think that as a Black leader, as somebody who has achieved in the community, any position or station, it's incumbent upon that person to reach back and help the next one up the ladder. In other words, put the ladder down so that they can also reach. There's a saying, or there's a song back in the day, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. And that is something that I live by. I have a painting in my house with a man reaching over a wall to grab a boy up over that wall. And that's kind of how I like to live. And I think that as somebody in education and somebody who is always attempting to get students to go through a continuous improvement cycle. As an athlete, for example, you go through a continuous improvement cycle. You have to be thinking positive in order to do that. You have to come back the next day and train harder to be better the next day, and train harder to be better the day after that, and after that, and after that. So that positive thinking has to be instilled in you as an athlete. And you carry that, and I've carried that over into my professional life. And I think that it's incumbent upon those who have achieved a certain station to go back and continue to recycle that positive energy in young people and get them to start thinking positively and looking forward in terms of what they're going to do. And that's one of the reasons why mentorship is one of the things that I think is the most important thing we can do. The succession planning. We're not gonna be here forever. We have to plan for the next generation. I came from a board where I was the sole Black male administrator in the secondary panel. And I've left that board now, and now they have none. And that's a travesty. So I have to mentor and try to bring up the next person who's going to replace me. And so I can't sit down, rest on my laurels and say, oh yeah, I've made it, I'm a principal. Big deal. It doesn't matter if you don't help the next 5 principals from your community get into that leadership role. Because the thing is, we cannot do the work by ourselves. I cannot do the work by myself. I need allies. I need others to help with the heavy lifting. So I think that positive energy that you bring back, you have to bring it and give it to those who are coming up next and help them to achieve their goals. And mentorship is one of the ways that I see to do that.
Absolutely, you nailed it. I often say you need to replicate yourself. If you're a leader and you haven't replicated yourself, you haven't looked to see my double, that you haven't
Yes.
achieved, why you were put there in the first instance. Ingrid.
So Colette, this question is for you. So the first step towards developing lasting self-confidence is to practice acceptance of your strengths and your challenges. So how can one overcome the negative outlook that has surrounded their experience and regain confidence in themselves at work or in school or in business?
Thank you. And I'd just like to also say thank you for being a part of this group. And I would say that being a part of such an esteemed group is very confidence boosting for me. So I thank you for this opportunity. I asked my daughter over dinner a few nights ago, she's 10, and I said, what advice would you give to someone around confidence boosting? And she said, well, don't doubt yourself. And I thought, as a 10-year-old, how easy it is to say those words and to simply suggest don't doubt yourself. And then something happens as we get older and we allow those doubts to grow within us. And so I would say two things. I want to piggyback on something that Anton said around mentorship, and that it's not only a benefit to the person that you are mentoring in terms of building confidence, but the relationship is reciprocal, and that the mentor gains as much from mentoring as the mentee. And so I would say to a young person looking to build that confidence, to mentor someone. Because when you show that you have something to give others, you gain from that. You gain confidence from that. And then the other piece I would say is around being a good friend. Because when you are a good friend, you will be surrounded by good people and people who are good for you. And I would always tell students who are struggling socially that you only need one good friend in the world. And with that one good friend, that friend builds confidence. And so don't doubt yourself, and learn from a mentoring relationship and be a good friend.
Excellent, thank you. So mentorship, again, a strong theme tonight. So Anika, this question is for you. So personal development can be incredibly a powerful practice. So we can all benefit from understanding how to improve ourselves. How can one cultivate the ability to assess, reflect, and identify those hidden opportunities to move you up to that next level?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So I would say that self-awareness is probably where you have to start. It's in that reflection. Most of us think and would argue that we're self-aware because virtually no one wants to say, yeah, I'm not really aware of who I am. But it's an ongoing process and it's an ongoing commitment. If I'm aware of myself today, in a week's time, if I'm not checking in and learning and reflecting and having conversations with other people and listening to what people actually have to say, then I'm not growing, right? And so I think there's this concept in psychology called the looking glass self, and it talks about how it's important what you think about yourself. It's also important what people think about you, but what's most important is what you think other people think about you. And so for me, in that self-development process, it's about reframing if I feel that others have a negative image of me. It's about, celebrating the small wins, asking the tough questions, and being able to reflect when things don't go as I plan.
Excellent. Interesting. I like that, Anika. And oftentimes people will say, it is not easy to identify that traits that you have that is the essence of who you are. And any one of the panelists, please feel free to take this question. How do you begin to understand who you are? That trait that perhaps you want to have as your anchor as you face life challenges. And anybody feel free to take this question, please.
Evangeline, I can jump in there. From what I understand of the question, I think, how do you begin to understand who you are? I think that's an ongoing process, right? That is how we live. So I can speak as someone who's worked in different structures and worked in different countries, that in each locale that I'm in, I learn more about myself because you respond to your environment, right? Whether or not that is environment in terms of the natural environment or environment in terms of the workplace culture. We learn more about who we are and what we can do depending on where we're placed and where we're positioned, right? And so that is part of the challenge, and it's also part of the opportunity to be our best selves in any given context. I think at the core of it, people are not complicated. We all want the same things. We want to be happy. We want to be respected. And I want my happiness and my entitlement to respect not to be intruded upon by your quest for your own happiness and your own respect, right? And so I need to understand that my perception of myself is unlimited and should not be framed by what you believe I can do, right? So I think that's the thing, that to go back to what Anika said, this issue of looking glass and this issue of awareness, to be aware that, you know, we have the ability to do whatever it is we want to do. And we will inevitably need to rely on community. And that community could shift and change depending upon what those goals are, depending on where we are. But I think we are always in moments of reflection and self-growth and self-knowledge. And that is the beauty of it, I think, too.
Absolutely, I love that. I think we have a question from the participants, and this one is from Lena Sherman, and she's asking, actually, she said, hello, Joelle. And she said, I would love to understand from Joelle's broad perspective, what are some common ground elements that unites focus?
Yeah, thanks, Evangeline. I had glanced that comment and I tried to incorporate that in my last remark. Yes. I think the common ground is that people are really, you know, searching their own truth, their own justice, and their own ability to do that, right? And I think that's what unites us, is we all want to be happy, we all want to be respected, and you know, seek our communities in which to support that, in which to do that. I'm just going back to the question to see if I've skipped anything. Yeah, I mean, at the root of it, so as a human rights lawyer, I can talk about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but I'm not going to bore you with all the provisions of that, right? But the context of it is that we are all entitled to the same thing by mere virtue of being human, right? But we see that there are systems, to go back to what you had said initially, Angeline, about you know, systems of exclusion, about systemic racism, systemic injustice. There are institutions, there are systems which really seek to exclude the individual and just, you know, focus on the structure. But at our core, we are individuals, right? And so when we talk about accessing what we need, what we want as individuals, we identify the system, whether or not that is racism, whether or not it is patriarchy, whether or not it is Islamophobia, whether or not it is homophobia, these systems, these structures of exclusion, right? We identify those and we seek to dismantle them. We seek to decolonize them, right? That notion of oppression. And then we seek to transform them and rebuild them into something that allows us to shine as individuals and allows us to build community. So, you know, I think what we talk about is this polarization between institutions and systems and all the problems that creates, because it masks individuality, and then, you know, transition into this notion of community, which really allows individuals to be in community and engagement with one another.
That's well said. Thank you.
So I have a comment question. So 2020, challenging year with the pandemic, and social media goes wild. So social media picks up everything out there and emphasizes it. And so the George Floyd situation and all the other issues are now top of mind. And what we see is our young people marching, our young people protesting, and we see the anger coming out of these young people. So to any of the panelists here, how do we propel them forward to success when they're challenged because they're so overwhelmed with what they're now seeing on social media and what's out there? How do we keep them motivated to move forward and not get frustrated about that mountain they have to climb? Actually, Shay, I'm going to throw it at you. What do you think? Ooh, mute.
Sorry, it's on mute. Hello, everyone. Oh, I love that question. I love it because I actually think it relates really well to mentorship. You know, mentorship isn't just about your career and your profession. I think we have to look at mentorship in a multidisciplinary way. That we're also, there's an opportunity with this social media obsession and the aggression in social media, the lack of knowledge that's shared in social media, the misinformation in social media. There's also opportunity for us as mentors to mentor well-being, to mentor awareness, mindfulness, conversations that are about deep listening, and to let people know, let young people know, and let people across different generations and from different backgrounds, that having a conversation where people are angry or sad or emotional, that is completely appropriate. Right? Because not only did we see in 2020 this eruption of social trauma, we saw also the expression of social grief, right? And so mentorship, I think, and leadership also is about showing and modeling how to explain, express, and heal. You know, we criticize social media a lot. And I think many of us who see what's wrong have to also find ways to use social media to create space for healing as well.
I like that, Shay. And when I'm thinking about that healing and thinking about what we've been through and so many other people been through this past year, College, I'm gonna come to you. How do you find your voice?
Well, that's to suggest I've found it. I don't know. I mean, there are some days that I find I struggle to find my voice. And I feel sometimes like the shy little kid that I was in high school. And then there are other times where I feel like I step out of my comfort zone and say what I feel needs to be said, and whether that's because I'm in a safe space, like you've described here this evening, or whether I feel like it's worth the risk, or whether I feel it's worth that it's the right thing to do. But I have to say that finding my voice didn't and doesn't still come easy for me.
It is a continuous learning, a continuous process. I say just put just one step in front of yourself. So well said. I totally agree with you. I am still learning to find my voice. Ingrid, I know you have a question.
Yeah, so I mean, we're all talking about mentorship here, and everybody here has drank the Kool-Aid. So we're all here. We know that we are mentoring youth and everybody else around us. But what about everybody else? So Anton, what about all those people, those leaders who are not giving back or not mentoring? How do you bring them to the table?
I think the most important thing is for them to find what I call is their jam. What's your jam? What makes you, what turns you on? And then leverage that thing to get where you want to be. And so they have to have the passion. When you're working and you're doing something and you have a passion for it, it doesn't feel like work. And so when I talk to, like, I'm working with a young man right now, a young teacher, and I'm trying to tell him, listen, you've got to find your jam, find out what it is that you do well, find a way to leverage that so that you can build relationships with your students and your colleagues. And that's how you're going to be able to, one, make a difference in the lives of the people that you're touching, and also get the fulfillment of the work that you're doing. So it's important, I think, for people to understand what it is. And they have to be brave enough to be honest with themselves and understand what their jam is, what their leverage is, what their thing is that they do well, what they do naturally. So I think that's a really key thing. If you can get somebody to figure out what that is, you don't have to pay them. They'll come to work skipping every day.
I like that. Come to work skipping every day. Neil, we have those questions in Q&A that I would like for you to address. And it says, what should you do when your boss employee lowers your confidence? How can you assert yourself without being seen as disrespectful or as aggressive?
Well, thank you very much. This is a good question. And I can answer it shortly. It wouldn't take me long to have that answer. I think it depends on personal perception toward, what was presented to you. When you regard yourself as somebody within, something or somebody together with others, you would expect that there would be, hard feeling around. But how you reflect on that and how you externalize it is what would make what you would think about what had happened in a way that it was presented to you. But if you turn it, because everything has a different way around, it could be something that you can reflect on and, move it forward by saying, it happened, this is what it is. Of course, it may not be the representation of what it is. Sometimes we talk about, somebody having, a bad day or, thing like that. So internalize it in a positive way so that you move forward. If it is something that you cannot let go so easily, address it to that person that it is not okay. I feel this way and I don't want this to happen again. Maybe you might come to understanding with that person, whether it was intentional or it was, a kind of, subconscious bias, something that, wasn't actually intended by the person. And this is how you can take it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I found out recently that March 1st is what do they call it? Black Mental Health Day. Right. And what I want to know for each of you here, what does that one day mean for you after we've all gone through Black History Month? What is the significance of that day to you? Anika, I'm going to throw that to you. What do you think about Black Mental Health Day?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think as Black individuals, we don't always get the space to open up and share emotions and discuss mental health in a positive manner. And so I think for me, when I think of Black Mental Health Day, I think of using my voice, especially in the space that I'm in with athletes who often come to me in private right? As like a young Black man who is struggling and needs support and doesn't know where to start and doesn't know, even how to label the emotions that are coming up. So I think for me, it's to make myself available for others. I practice, mental health is a large part of my daily practice. So for me, a day where the awareness is shed on Black mental health, it's about reaching out and helping others find their voice when it comes to asking for help and learning how to deal with the experience that they're having, especially now.
Okay, excellent. So here's my next question for anybody here. So what do we do on March 2nd? How do we carry it forward?
Keep talking.
Anton, yeah, keep talking. Anton? Oh, he's.
I think we eliminate the term microaggression from the lexicon, because in all the work that I've done over the years, when we talk about this microaggression, it's often gentlemen like myself in their late years who are reflecting on their high school experiences with educators and others who have done these microaggressions that they're still talking about 40 years later. So I think we have to eliminate that kind of talk because it's not micro if you're still talking about it 30 and 40 years later. And so when we go through Black History Month and we have all these wonderful celebrations and the food and the song and the dance, and you don't leave that event with some kind of edification, some kind of knowledge, some kind of deeper understanding of who we are and where we come from, then that is a hollow experience to me. So taking a deep breath on March the 1st, after having a month of fulfilling activities, is mental health for me.
Well said. We have, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yep.
I think it's great that there's a recognition of a day, but we all know that mental health, there's stigma around mental health for all people. And we as a society, even though we talk about mental health, we still are very behind in terms of creating spaces and experiences and access for people, all sorts of people from different backgrounds, to have access to mental and emotional health support. And so I mean, for me, every day is a Black Mental Health Day. Every day I'm trying to encourage, create pods and circles for women of color to talk about their emotions, because there's such a strong history in our culture, in the culture of North American Blacks and Caribbean Blacks, or just really in the diaspora, of not addressing mental health and not being seen in the larger health system. And there's so many issues that go unseen. And right now in the pandemic, there is a pandemic within the pandemic for Black and Brown people. And it's not just about their physical health, it is about the mental health and the mental suffering they're experiencing. So my hope is that on March 1st, we would say that this is the beginning of talking for the rest of the year and creating opportunities for the rest of the year to have conversations, to listen deeply, to be more mindful, to be connected, and to create space for people of African and Black descent to understand that part of being well and successful is actually looking after your emotional and mental well-being.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
I'm just going to respond to, and I see you, Jewel. So Shay and Onika, I love what you're saying. You talked about the stigma of people stepping forward. So there's one thing about Black Mental Health Day that people don't know. So it was created for, it's a Bill 178, but underneath it, there's two other very significant pieces that both Onika and Shay touched on. It addresses the long-term health care and the Minister of Health actually starting to collect data on races to the impact of stigma. So that change happened last year in 2020, and it's become so buried underneath this Mental Health Day that people don't know that there's another part of the act. So, you know, it's really significant that both Shay and Anika, you're talking about that stigma and being there for people that don't know how to step forward. So Jewel, you had a comment.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Ingrid. I think when we ground the realization in data, we know that once we have data, we then have to take action, right? It just doesn't stop with data collection. Like, there is automatically a next step. So thank you for reframing it in that way. I just wanted to go back and talk about Black Mental Health Day, and even just to talk about Black History Month. And so my colleagues have heard me say this. I take umbrage with the term Black History Month. The idea that we need to compartmentalize knowledge about Black history, celebration of Black excellence, planning for a Black future, you know, this notion of building Afrofuturism, that all of that is compartmentalized in time. And what Shay said resonated with me. I think the objective is to create space, but not necessarily to limit it by time. And so we create space to do what we need to do every day and in every way. And we shouldn't feel restricted by notions of timelines or boundaries, because that, again, are systems of oppression, right? Saying you have X number of hours or X number of days to do this or to do that, and then you need to move beyond that. But it's only, you know, ourselves internally who can determine when we are prepared to move to the next step. We, you know, we march to the rhythm of our own drums, literally, right? And so we can't be dictated or restricted by those imposed timelines. And I think that's also part of the systemic issue that I keep going back to Evangeline's opening comments, right? The idea that you only need to have this awareness within this time period, and then, you know, you can check your box and you've done it, and you don't need to move beyond whatever sort of learning or data gathering that you have, and then think about, you know, actioning the next step and the next step and the next step after that, right? This is all cyclical. It's an ongoing process, which means we shouldn't, you know, be beholden to timelines, particularly timelines that are not set by the community, right?
Absolutely. Well said. I love that. We have a couple of questions on Q&A. And let's see how many we can get through. And I'm going to ask one, and if anybody wants to jump in, please, if you can address any of the questions we have in the QA. I will go with this one. How do you get over workplace trauma? Because a lot of people of color deal with these microaggressions that stay with them from job to job. I think Anton mentioned something around that, but yeah.
So there it is right there, right? It's a microaggression that stays with you from job to job. How's that micro? And I think that language kind of minimizes the impact of these things. And that's part of the problem. And I really want to echo what Jewel and some others said about Black History Month, expanding it out of Black History Month and having it impact our students, for example, for 10 months of the year that we're in contact with them. So I think that's really, really important to do.
Yes, thank you. Another question is, looking at the board recommended literature for Black History Month, there has been very little change in over 40 years. Yep, amen to that. Why is there still an overemphasis on African American heroes, sports figures, celebrities, and rappers? There's an underrepresentation of current Canadian and other Black influences from Africa and the Caribbean and other parts of the world. Why is there an overemphasis on improvised childhoods? Basically, I think this is more of comments, but then there's this question: the schools seem to be reinforcing stereotypes we see on TV, in movies, and on social media. Anybody feel free to comment, answer, because I think it's really loaded.
I can take a stab at it as an educator. I think that often educators look for that easy plug and play that they can grab and take and inject into their lesson or to the school or whatever the case is, and without looking a little bit deeper. And what they often find is the US version of something, or something that's done already, and they kind of give you the, like I said before, the food and the song and the dance without giving you the substance behind it. And our African history was interrupted by slavery. It didn't begin with slavery. And so people often are looking to start with slavery. And that's why people say, oh, why are we doing this again? Without recognizing the rich history of African peoples from the beginning of civilizations. So it's getting those things to those educators so they can share it. We at our school are bringing on a course talking about the deconstructing of anti-Black racism in the Canadian and North American context. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the news about the school and the teachers who were getting some flack about that. And I'm in communication with those brave educators who put the curriculum together. And I want to salute them here, because that's some brave work that they're doing, and very, very needed. So that's the kind of thing that will help to expand the curriculum and bring other conversations to the table other than just the trivial music, song, and dance pieces to our history.
Go ahead, Joelle. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just quickly add to that, as someone who works in a school system but is not a classroom educator, to add to what Anton has said, I think also the reason why there is inconsistency or lack of substance around what is taught in the curriculum is there is limited accountability. So the ministry or even the school board as a system does not say to individual teachers, show me where you have raised awareness about African history. Show me where you have incorporated Indigenous perspectives in your curriculum, and show me what the outcome is in learning, right? So that's all an issue of accountability. I mean, for various reasons, whether quite legitimate, teachers as professionals have a lot of leeway in what they do in the classroom. But in that leeway, there isn't a lot of immediate and follow-up accountability for how what they are doing impacts students and uplifts students, right? So I think the issue is certainly around accountability.
I think also one of the things that is a challenge is so much of what we do and champion is dependent on Black people doing it. And people get tired. You know, there's so much risk that activists, mentors, leaders from diverse Black backgrounds have to take on in order to perpetuate and create new ideas and to propagate those ideas. And I do think that one of the problems in Canada is that, you know, people are exhausted. And there is no, you know, like Jewel's saying, there is no accountability. It's not just in education, it's throughout our whole culture. There's no accountability for these are human beings who are part of our human experience. We're all human beings together, and we're living here together, and everyone's story should be shown, shared, and experienced. That should not be reliant on only Black people to do.
Thank you, Shay, for that. Yes. Colette, I have a question that I will want you to address. What have been some successful tactics in school boards in turning around the high expulsion rates of Black and other racialized children and youth?
Well, I can only speak about Halton specifically in terms of expulsion rates. And in Halton, our expulsion rates are quite low. And I would say one of the benefits of the pandemic is our suspension and expulsion rates are next to nothing. So there's one positive that's come out of the pandemic. But I think certainly there is a greater emphasis on mitigating factors, on the thorough kind of understanding of the whole student, understanding the needs and the other factors that have come into play that have led to this behavior, as well as to look at what can be done from a supportive lens versus a punitive lens. We know that in many cases, a suspension or an expulsion doesn't serve a purpose in terms of bettering the intervention for that individual, for that student. And so we are putting a greater emphasis on what can we do to support rather than punish. And so when we work through whether it is a suspension process or an expulsion process, we need to weigh all of those pieces. We need to weigh what are the factors that need to be considered that are mitigating for this individual, and what have we done as a system to support this individual to get them support or change.
Did I see your hand? Thank you so much, Colette. Did I see your hand, Joelle? No? Okay. I'm looking at the time. I think that has been amazing discussions. Thank you so much. Esteemed panelists, I enjoyed all of your, having this conversation with you. And I hope that our participants, they benefited from listening to you, hearing your answers. I see somebody asking one more question, but what we will do is perhaps send it to you guys later on so you can address some of the questions we were not able to address this night, and we can share that with our what I call BMI community. And right now I'm going to introduce our BMI web host. You've seen him sitting quietly listening to all of you. He is the one that has made this technology so seamless. And let me just give you a little bit of summary, basically, of his young career. Jeff, that's what we call him, and that's his name, is a recent master's graduate from Boston University. He began his undergrad in Carleton University, where he studied law, and moved on to Seneca College to study public relations. He has the main goal of connecting people through the use of media and entertainment. I can attest to that. As a diligent worker, he has held several positions that require an immense amount of creative input and a necessary aid to others. And Jeff is so valuable to the BMI team. And once again, Jeff, thank you for your work, your support, everything. Thank you. So Jeff is going to talk about his reflections of BMI Black History Month. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Evangeline, for that introduction. I just want to say thank you to all the individuals that registered to be part of this event tonight. We at BMI, the team, we hope we inspired you guys and you were entertained as fully as you can be for the evening's events. So what we're talking about, propelling Black success, the theme behind it, why I feel like it was so important was because of the theme behind Black mentorship and mentorship itself. It's showing people being a leader and being a role model in your community. And it challenged everyone that saw our previous events. And this one, I'm pretty sure it has instilled in them a positive nature to want to go out and do more by having such great speakers in our past events. We have educators of the future like Anton and Colette here with us. So they're showing us, they're kind of mapping the future out for us and what it's going to be like, and helping us move forward and showing us how we can move forward together, not just being an individual self, but how we can transform, like something like Evangeline did, how we can transform our mishaps and things happen to us, or negative situations that have happened to us, how we can take them and transform them into something positive to help our community, and not just ourselves, but help the world at a larger scale. What I wanted to talk about moving forward is the only way we can move forward as a community is by helping one another and giving a helping hand wherever we can. Teamwork, unity, and collaboration, these are some qualities that BMI speaks strongly to, and it's been touched on throughout our theme this month for Black History Month. We need to lend a helping hand whenever we can, and we always have to look to assist regardless of the skills required or the difficulty of the project. What I understood is it is also important to pick your pond, to know where you fit in and know what you do well, and make sure you find what you're good at and you do it to the maximum, and you take pride whenever you do it. You make sure whatever you do comes out great because this is you, and you always want to represent yourself to the best way you can. I find it's also fun to make things, it's also good to make things fun and engaging for yourself, wherever you find yourself helping others or just helping out in any way you can. It's always fun to make these things for yourself, engaging, and to keep yourself motivated and inspired throughout. I find it's good to set goals that are achievable, mini goals that you can achieve during the session or the time you're volunteering or lending a hand. It's good to create small challenges for yourself just to get your brain moving. Challenge yourself, or you tell yourself that you can get to this point by this time, and you'll be good. And you just go from there. You set little challenges and little goals, and this will help you stay motivated and eventually complete the task. I also find it's always good to listen to feedback, anything you do. I've been working with Evangeline, and she's helped me grow my network in substantial ways. She's taught me a lot. I thought I was pretty much the tech guru, but I've only learned some stuff from her. So it's always good to just be looking for feedback any way you can, help out, and just stay positive and focused, set goals for yourself, meditate, take care of your health, and always just seek to be the best version of yourself. Inspire people with the work you do, not just for yourself, but look to do work for your community, and just to have a more broadened approach on life and helping others, not just to have an individual mindset towards working towards your own goals, but it's always good to help out your community, because what you do in your community also reflects back on you. As you can see, Evangeline, she's a strong leader in her community, and what she's doing now, even with the small amount of participants we get every other time for these sessions, I'm very sure that a sizable amount of them have been motivated or inspired to do something to also assist their community.
Thank
and
you.
as we just conclude the Black History Month celebration, I just want to say thank you to Evangeline, all the attendees, Ingrid as well, you've been great, and all our speakers as well. Anton has been terrific, answering the questions diligently, and giving us the right information on the tools we need. This whole Black History Month celebration has been great. I'm so honored to be a part of it, and I'm always here to help going forward. With any other events coming up, I'll be available to offer my assistance.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that, Evangeline? Yeah, okay. Ready.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Ingrid, take it away.
So I have the pleasure of introducing our closing keynote speaker tonight, Shay Marvell. You've already heard her participating in the panel tonight. So Shay's a wellness pioneer, and she's the CEO of Elivram Media and Coaching, Inc. She's an executive coach and is also the producer and host of the Let's Talk podcast with Shay Marvell. I've seen many of her podcasts. They're pretty amazing. So Shay, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm number one. I just want to reiterate how grateful I am to be with all of you. Angeline, this is just an extraordinary event and series. And even though I think Black history is human history, I am really grateful that you have been so courageous in setting out to create these events, you and Ingrid, and I think we're better for doing it. And I just want to thank the panelists. It's been, I could just sit here for 2 more hours and listen to all of you, like these esteemed panelists. I think, again, what an amazing community and diverse community we have, and we have at our fingertips. Obviously we all have gone through and are going through this catastrophic event of the pandemic, and living through it and trying to plan a future. And I think one of the skills that everyone around the world has right now is the skill of resilience, whether they know it or not. We all are more resilient because we are experiencing an event that we never imagined or envisioned could actually happen. And one of the things that this pandemic has demonstrated is our ability to adapt, our ingenuity as human beings and our capacity to actually come up with new ideas and ways of doing things. Because the reality is, this pandemic is global, it is economic, it has transformed our health system, it has shown the social sufferings and ills of our society globally, and it has revealed the most vulnerable in our society. And I think, you know, I'm sure if all of you were asked, and if you talk to people right now, you would hear about this kind of pandemic fatigue that everybody is experiencing to different degrees. Some people, it's fragility. For some people, it's a complete breakdown. For some people, it's a low-grade depression. For some people, it's a sense of hopelessness. And it's hard, actually, right now to talk to people about being hopeful. But I think this is exactly the time to not just talk about being hopeful, but to use the word limitless. You see, all of a sudden, in less than 12 months, we have gone from being a society that was very, very linear, where, you know, banks would say, I'm sorry, you can't pay your mortgage? I can't do anything about that. Whereas now they're saying something different. Maybe not for very long, but they certainly are saying something different. We are now in a society where our children, if they have technology, are going to school from home. We are now in a society when people used to ask to work from home and they were told only good work can happen in the office. We've learned that that's not true, that in fact more work happens now. According to Harvard study, we've added an hour to 2 hours to our workday. So we are doing things in ways that we never imagined doing them. So we know, we have the evidence that something different can happen. And what I would suggest to you is that this is actually the absolute right time to get out of our boxes, to think and imagine what we want differently, and to ask ourselves, what do I care about? Who do I care about? Where do I want to live? And not just what do I want to achieve? What do I want to experience? What do I want to feel in this world? You know, in less than a week ago, our science community recorded sound on Mars. And this story was hardly ever even shared. We are becoming something else. And in the becoming of something else, for the first time, at least in the history that I know, as a global society, we are all having the same shared experience. It doesn't matter your race or your gender. It certainly matters your education and your class. But the reality is, we are all living in some fear because of a virus that nobody can see, that is exchanged between breath. And yet, we're able to work because of technology. So the opportunity that exists is for us as individuals, as families, as neighborhoods, as communities, as nations, to say, what will we be and who will be included in what we are becoming? And that there are no barriers. There are systemic issues, and they are ongoing. And the death and murder of George Floyd demonstrated, right? It demonstrated that these horrible things, devastating things can happen still. And if nobody had a video camera, we wouldn't have known about it. But because somebody had a phone and they could record it, it wasn't just that the world saw it together. It's that a lot of the world felt it together. And there lies another opportunity. So now we're experiencing a global pandemic. It's happening to all of us. Now we are feeling something inclusively. It's happening to all of us. Now we are also living in a time where we have a technology system. We're like in the fourth industrial revolution, right? That is amped up so high that who continues to make money right now? All the people in tech. All the technology companies are growing and creating new video systems. Am I saying that's bad? No, I'm saying they're creating things that are possible, and that we have to start thinking about where we fit in the technology lexicon of what we are becoming next. The other thing that's occurring, and so many people on this panel talked about it today, they talked about reflection and mindfulness and becoming more aware. And often when we talk about mindfulness and meditation, it's about stress reduction, it's about mental health, it's about becoming healthier. But there's another piece to becoming more reflective, to becoming more mindful. And that is the instinct of awareness. Awareness is not something that occurs once. You feel it, you notice something, and that's it. Awareness is something that grows, expands, and changes us. And what I suggest to you is that at the end of this, we will be something else. And that is why we have to make a decision right now, whether we are in debt, whether we've lost our jobs, whether we're not going to school, to the school we want to go, whether our children are not doing as well as we think they should be doing. Everyone is doing the best they can in a circumstance that has no rule book. But we can decide in the midst of this pain and transformation that we will have a mindset that does what? It notices, it observes, it adapts, it nourishes, it grows, it transforms the sky. You know, every time we look at a star, that star is a sun on another planet. And I submit to you that there's 7.8 billion people on this earth. And there's 7.8 billion stars. You know, one of the most exciting things about being a person of African descent is knowing that we come from a people that have survived so many traumas, so many cages, and live to fight and create and to have joy and to dance and have food and make love and have friends and continue to grow. That's the human spirit, right? And every human being has that capacity. And I wish when we talked about Black History Month and we talked about Black history, we talked more about the value of our resilience and the bones and the muscles that have grown psychologically, metaphysically, from surviving so many traumas. Those things are in our history. And the last thing I would say to you is that we've lost a lot of people around the world, and especially in our communities in the last 12 months to the pandemic and because of the pandemic. And we can investigate, and we should investigate why, and look at the resources and all the things that are happening systematically to make that a possibility. But we should also stand for them, because they wanted to live. They wanted to continue to live. And in us, they are in us. And their strength, plus what is happening globally, plus what we are becoming, and what we are hoping for, is creating something new, something limitless. My friends, I am more hopeful today than ever before, because I think we are experiencing something that we never could have imagined, never could have imagined, and are surviving and thriving through it. So may we mentor and love one another, grow through our suffering, stand for the people we've lost, and recognize the ingenuity of our whole human family, and never take less, and always create more. I wish you so much goodness and wellness and health. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was
amazing.
Phenomenal. Go, Ingrid, go ahead.
So I just wanted to thank you all for traveling with us on this journey. And as many of you have said tonight, continuing forward on this journey. So, stay tuned for more after we sleep, after we take a nap.
A long nap.
Naps, a long nap.
Ingrid.
And
yeah, I was gonna say, give me a call to action. What are you? Okay, say something to us.
Call to action. Honestly, for me, okay, I'm going to give you one statement that I've been saying. My brother Craig thinks I'm pounding it into the ground. But if we build inclusivity for all, we build inclusivity for one. Let's keep it going, people. Do not just end this with Black History Month or Black Mental Health Day. Move it forward. So that's my thought.
Amen.
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 Love that. Moving forward. And I say dare to disrupt. Somebody said to me, Evangeline, you said you are looking for work. You know that employers don't hire people that rock their boat. And I almost stopped talking, stopped sharing. I wrote something around that, and I called it Almost Silenced by My Own. But then I thought about that, and I thought about, if I stop maybe rocking their boats, who will? And though I am still learning and I'm still fearful, I decided, and every day, this is a continuous thing, I decided to put one foot in front of me. 1 foot, 1 foot. And that's what I will say to everybody. Dare to disrupt. Dare to have that courage to put 1 foot in front of you. And remember, we cannot get this change that we are looking for by keeping quiet. And I have to say, it's been an amazing 1 full month. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so much for your time, for being here with us. I thank you, all of our participants, and I really encourage everybody to donate to BMI. This is how we bring forth our programs and our services. Everybody here pretty much is volunteering their time. And so we're saying, please donate, go to our website, click on that button, donate, send us your goodwill we really appreciate that. Follow us on our LinkedIn and all of our social media pages for more